let's get back to the conversation. We got Gregory. We're going to be coming to him in just one moment. Just a couple other comments on the Tua Jalen situation. The question we're asking today: if you got one reason, you can't have a million. You come down and literally the guys are neck and neck, and there's different reasons to choose each guy, but you have to choose just one. What is it going to be? What is the one reason going to be? First of all, let me help you out here. Let me tell you what Nick Saban. Let me tell you what I think about Nick Saban as a decision maker when it comes to the quarterback position. He's risk averse. He wants to be able to control the player. He struggled with A.J. McCarron because A.J. McCarron was a wild card. And it took him a while to trust that wild card. So he likes control. He likes to know that whatever he calls is going to be ran, James. But you know what else has been added to the mix that now you have to add to Nick Saban? Is Nick Saban wants balance. And that's what he's always had until last year. It was still fairly balanced the year before, not the way he likes it. So he wants to get back to that balance. And one other thing, James, is recruiting. And he's having to tell he's getting all these wide receivers because he's telling them the offense at Alabama is transitioning to more, hey, we're going to use the passing game. So you can see that if you look at the traits of Nick Saban, there's reasons that you choose Tua and there's reasons you choose Jalen. The question none of us know is which one of those. How does Nick Saban have risk averse, control, balance, and utilizing all the weapons? How does he have them ranked in his decision-making process, James? That would determine who's going to be the quarterback. Let's get to Gregory, and then we'll get back to some of the comments we're getting on Facebook. Gregory, welcome into the Blitz, man. What's on your mind?
Road time, Martin. Thank you, man. But you already answered my question. Control. You have more control with Jada. I can't. You just said he won. I can do it, Martin. I can explain everything.
Go ahead.
Control. I just said control.
Control. What do you mean by control? Controlling the ball, controlling turnovers. What do you?
Manage the game.
Manage the game.
Don't turn no ball over. Like you been making me go on and on with this. You know, but why Tua ain't gonna be the starter? Because Nick Saban do not want to retire right now.
Nick Saban doesn't want what?
Do not want to retire right now. Because Tua gonna give him a headache.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah,
now you could explain that right there to the fans. You already did control.
Nick Saban control is, and I'm telling you, and I'm not even talking about from a turnover. The risk averse is my turnover thing. Is him being risk averse. The control is that see when you call a play. When you call a play with like certain quarterbacks, they're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and boom, then they're gonna throw it away. Tua's a gunslinger. Tua may read something because he's so gifted in pre-reading that he may totally skip the first part of the pass play because he knows that he can get it to the guy on the third option because of what he's read in the defense. Or when he scrambles, he's going to take more chances. He's not going to throw the ball away. In other words, there's a greater chance with one guy going off script than the other guy. See, there's risk averse in terms of hating turnovers, but then there's control in terms of A.J. McCarron, the best example I can give you. He told A.J. to run out the clock, right? Do you remember that play, James? He told A.J. to run out the clock. What does A.J. do? A.J. takes a deep pass over the middle. Now, was that part of the play? Yes, it was part of the play. But Nick Saban did not want him to run that part of the play. So it's not just whether Tua take chances or not. It's the fact that will he have control? And listen, that's not all bad. I'm just saying that that's one of the things that Nick Saban has traditionally liked. And the ups and downs. You think about Nick Saban on the last two plays of the national championship game, Gregory.
Yeah.
He was at the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
When Tua got sacked.
Yeah.
Well, why did Tua?
He was looking.
Yeah, you know, in some, and I don't think Tua necessarily did anything wrong. I've heard some people say, well, Tua got sacked because he was trying to make a big play. Well, there's going to be times that Tua, instead of just throwing it away, is going to take the sack. So Nick Saban is over there about, if Nick Saban could have got to him, he would have choked him. You know what I'm saying? Not literally, but you know what I'm saying. And then, I know what you're saying. And then the next play, he was on top of the world.
Yes, he was.
And can Nick Saban deal with that roller coaster? Is Nick Saban? Go ahead.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, everybody in their lifetime gonna have a 30-minute thing. That don't mean gonna fall for the rest of their life now. See what I'm saying? You're gonna have to put in work. You know what I'm saying? All right, now go ahead, Martin.
All right. Hey, I'm going to let you go because I got to get to these other comments, Gregory, but roll tide, Gregory. All right. Hey, but listen, it's up to you. What are your thoughts? Hey, listen, I have several different one way. I don't know which guy's going to win the job, but I'm trying to think like Nick Saban, James. And Nick Saban making these decisions, and as I said, he has a template for what he's going to measure these guys by. He's going to measure, all the coming in. I don't know if he'll have a score rating and have one versus the other. Will they all be weighted equally? But Nick Saban is risk averse, meaning that he hates turnovers. He absolutely hates turnovers. Then he also has the question in terms of control. And once again, I'm not talking about whether somebody's going to turn the ball over. I'm talking about, can you rein this guy in? One of the neat things that I saw Tua and Saban have, you remember the cute little buddy-buddy relationship they had where slapping him on the butt and all that stuff? Well, does the dynamics of that change, James, when you're the starter, and all of a sudden you throw that interception against Tennessee and you're the starter versus being the backup when the game's out of the way, and how that dynamic plays out? And will Nick Saban have the same issues? And we hadn't talked a lot about it. I wasn't on the air when it happened, but he had a hard time with McCarron. Because McCarron, not hard time in the sense of he didn't like him. It was just Nick Saban had to adjust his personality. And with Tua, man, what do we say about Jalen? He's the same the whole time. Now, is that good or bad? Well, it's based on the personality of your team and your coach and all of that. Well, Tua, to me, seems like a guy who is going to have some high highs and some low lows. And can you deal with that lack of control? Can Nick Saban live with the high highs and the low lows? We'll see. But we also know he wants balance back, James. He wants a legit threat with the running game and the passing game. He doesn't want to be pigeonholed into a running team with limited passing. He wants to be able to attack you whichever way he wants to go, passing or running. Nick Saban, up until recently, had virtually 53, 54, 55% to 45, 47, 48% run pass. And he wants that back, I believe. But the other side of that coin, James, is he's recruiting at an extremely high level of wide receivers and skill positions and tight ends. Well, you know what he has to be telling those guys, right? We're going to get you the ball. And so does that become, and because the impact that has on recruiting and even future transfers, does that play into it? All of those things, I think Nick Saban's processing, and we'll be making a decision. And I don't know which one he's the one. Let's get to a couple comments on Facebook regarding this. DH Bates says, Jalen wins the job because of his experience. Boom. Just point blank, that's what he says. But then he says Tua wins the job because of his passing ability. And then he said, with a bonus brother in the recruiting process. So that was DH Bates. Kevin Smith says, Jalen wins the job if Tua can't keep turnovers down. Well, I mean, how do you know? Well, that means that he says Tua's going to win the job. Or he's saying that Jalen's going to win it by default, meaning that Tua's making turnovers in practice. Maybe that's what he meant by that statement. Jalen wins the job if Tua can't keep turnovers down in practice, because we're saying who's going to win the job, starting job. And then he says Tua wins the job if game management isn't provided or isn't improved. And so to me, if I'm interpreting Kevin's response correctly, James, he kind of feels like Jalen's going to win the job as much by default of what he's not just default, but because of what he's proven. And then Tua being the opposite of that.
Really, in this case, it's not about Tua or Jalen winning the job. It's about Tua losing the job.
Right. And if I'm misspeaking for Kevin, then please, Kevin, respond on Facebook and let me know. But that's the way I would interpret that comment. Virgil Williams says, Jalen wins because of proven leadership and ability. Tua wins if Jalen has listened to the rat poison by the fans and just quits progressing. So now this is the flip side of that. Virgil saying Tua wins it because Jalen doesn't progress and doesn't do what he's supposed to. So this is someone who believes that Jalen is the leader in the clubhouse, James. And then he says Jalen loses his job, once again, loses the job if he has listened to the rat poison and stops trying. Tua doesn't get picked. Tua loses the job. Tua doesn't get picked for the job because of unproven ability to secure the ball. So once again, it seems like everybody thinks that Nick Saban's biggest contribution is going to be the ability to keep the ball, because that's what the first few comments have said. D.H. Bates said, I think if someone who didn't know anything about Jalen Hurts and just looked at his stats, age, record, they would say he will win the Heisman before he graduates. In other words, that's just a comment that D.H. Bates making about Jalen sometimes, that we as fans have got to the point where we've seen him and experienced him, but we also don't recognize what he's done and his ability to do it. Kevin Smith says, Saban also realized that we have to throw the ball down the field consistently to win 2 or 3 of our games this year. So once again, that to me, that's the weapons utilized. If we don't use all our weapons, is that going to be enough? Where does that rank in terms of Saban's decision making? And Kevin Smith came back and said, yes, Martin, that's what he meant by that. The statement, Larry Miller said, my statement is absolutely laughable. It doesn't matter what I say. I hadn't made any statements about anybody or one thing, but Larry Miller, hey, Larry Miller, if you would, please explain what part of my statement is laughable. I'm simply asking questions on who you think, what's your reason for it? Go ahead.
Can we get Larry in the studio for a Live the Dream Friday?
Sure. If Larry's willing to do it. CJ Watson says Jalen wins because he's proven over a long period of time, proven leader, winner, takes care of the ball. Tua wins because his passing ability is unmatched. Jalen loses his job because the offense occasionally hiccups with him as QB. Tua loses the job because he is more prone to mistakes, a Saban pet peeve. Larry said he wasn't talking about me. Okay. I was like, okay, what did I say? Larry, of course, was referring to Virgil's statement that Jalen wins because of proven leadership ability, and Tua wins if Jalen has listened to the rat poison by the fans and just quits. I'm going to see if I can do I may have to do a Live the Dream the world championship heavyweight fight.
Larry versus Virgil.
Larry versus Virgil. We may have to make that happen. Most of the time when in radio, people have done that where they've done it via the radio. Well, we're going to do it on Facebook Live and in studio at the same time. So we may be working on that. I don't know. But anyway, we need to get the break here. We're going to continue the conversation about give me one reason. And it's your reason. It's valid or invalid based on your thought process. Why Jalen Hurts wins the job or why Tua wins the job. Only give one reason now. I'm going to give you some reasons to think about, and then I'll give you my one reason for each. And then the con is, or the why he doesn't win the job. Why does Jalen not win the job, or why does Tua not win the job? We're going to continue that conversation right here on The Blitz. I think the announcers totally missed what Nick Saban was doing. He had no intentions for A.J. McCarron to throw that pass. He was up in his grill because he told him not to do that. And that's what I mean by control, James. Nick Saban wants he likes knowing that he whatever he calls, whatever he asks for, that's what's going to be done. And when you look at it, I think it was the Florida game where he finally realized, if I do not allow AJ to play, if I keep him restricted, then I'm going to lose this kid. He can't play with the restrictions I'm used to playing on. Ironically, he hasn't gotten to that point, in my opinion, with Jalen. To me, I know there's been adjustments to offense. There's been things. But to me, he's not been willing to go all in as a dual threat guy. And as a matter of fact, from year 1 to year 2, they went backwards. Dable tried to make Jalen more of a pocket passer. And I know that's what Jalen asked for. And so Jalen's request to be made into a pro passer may have hurt his Alabama career. And it's hard to say somebody's career is hurt when they're 26-2 and have played in 2 national championship games and has a national championship ring to his credit. But that request to be turned into a pro style or desire to be turned into a pro style quarterback may have hurt Jalen Hurts, because to me, we've never seen Jalen truly be a dual threat quarterback. We've seen a guy who has the running ability and the ability to do some things, but he's never been in like the offense that you saw how Bobby Petrino totally changed his offensive approach under Lamar Jackson. The offense that Urban Meyer runs at Ohio State, what Mullins does at Florida, what Auburn and Gus Malzahn does. We've not seen that type of offensive approach to Jalen, and I don't think we're going to see that. I think Mike Locksley, from what I saw in the spring, they're not going to baby Jalen into a dual threat offense. Nick Saban wants balance, and balance comes from mostly a pro style passer. So Jalen is going to have to grow and mature into that if he's going to be the starter. Now, the question is, what does one guy have to do versus the other? Here's a couple things, just from a pro standpoint. If you're looking at a couple things, why would Jalen, if you're looking at trying to decipher what's the one reason Jalen wins the job? Well, first of all, he's proven that from one year to the next, he can emphasize ball control. Because everybody forgets, Jalen had 9 interceptions, I think, his freshman year. That was down to 1. But did that 1 come at a cost to him? And we'll talk about that in a moment. So the one side of ball control sometimes means the other thing that hurts. Okay, so ball control is a strength of Jalen. We know Jalen's a tough kid. We've seen Jalen take some big-time licks, big-time hits. We've seen Jalen go through a lot of adversity. We've seen Jalen be loved by the fans, James, and hated by not all fans, but hated by fans and talked about. We've seen Jalen go through the tough ups and downs of the media pressure. We don't know if Tua can handle that. We assume he can, but we don't know that. He also has experience. He's won. He's been a leader. He's proven those things. The flip side of that is, what is the pros to Tua? I mean, Tua's a weapon. Tua can absolutely – his passing acumen, his ability to pre-read, and his ability to utilize all the weapons, to me, those are his strengths. Now, I think Tua's a lot more mobile than what people give him credit for. So it's not as big a gap in the running game as you think with Tua at the quarterback position. And will this new offense, will the requirement for the quarterback to run and be a dual threat guy be reduced? Now, sometimes people get mixed up with RPO and dual threat is 2 different things. RPO is read pass option, not run pass option. I mean, I know people say, it is run pass option, but it's the ability of the quarterback to read it and see which one it is. And if I can read it quicker than you, I may not be as good a runner. And if I can read it more accurately than you, I can be just as effective when I run the pass RPO as well as when I pass it. And then if you're a better passer, guess what it does? It creates more opportunities for you to run it when you read it correctly, because you're more of a threat when you run the ball out of an RPO. So it's a lot of things going on there in terms of, James, what Tua brings to the table. On the con side of it, the very thing that makes Jalen strong in Nick Saban's eyes now, because Nick Saban has so many weapons and he knows he has to get the ball spread around to all those weapons, from the running back position to the wide receivers, Jalen's holding on to the ball, not taking chances, now becomes a negative because he doesn't take the chances. now that negative on Tua becomes a positive because Tua's going to utilize the weapons. The big thing with Tua is that Saban is risk averse and Tua's a risk taker. So when you start looking at it, there's a lot of different reasons. We're getting some comments on Facebook. Let me see what we got here. Kevin Smith says Tua's next level ability that can't be denied. Saban knows he will need patience. Loxley will help with that. So Kevin, and that's the thing is right now, if you go back and look at that national championship game with Tua, James, we did have 3 touchdowns, but it could have been 3 interceptions as well. It could have been a 3-3 easily in that game, or 2-3, because one interception was called back. Then you had the one play where the running back was covered, and what's his name? Actually, Ridley's touchdown was actually meant. I think he was throwing it to Najee Harris, who was covered. So there's things but it's the risk and reward. Remember the roller coaster. Can Nick Saban deal with that? And that's the question. Kevin Smith says Jalen will come in as a change of pace with a hurry up, no huddle style series of plays. Larry Miller said, where was the leadership and ability in the national championship? How about the Auburn game? It disappears when he plays a team with a pulse. Saban has 6 national championships. He's only lost 1. And who was the quarterback of that team? It would have been 2 losses without Tua. Do you agree with that? I agree that we would have lost the Georgia game. I don't put the Clemson loss on Jalen, Larry, because when I look at the Clemson game, the last time Jalen was on the field, they won the game. He all he could do, no matter we act like we only take what happens at the end of the game when we give credit. Tom Brady came back and won a Super Bowl because the way he played down the stretch. If he had played perfect up until that point and didn't make that play, then would we say he lost the game? Do we say Matt Ryan lost the game? No, we don't say Matt Ryan lost the game. We say the Falcons lost the game. And we don't put it on Matt Ryan, even though he did something much worse than Jalen. All I want to know is, in the Clemson game, how did we throw the ball 32 times against Clemson, James, and we were up the entire game? And we were behind the entire Georgia game, and we only threw it 32 times, or maybe not even. I think Jalen had 8, Tua had 24. In the 2 games, one game we're leading the whole game, and we throw the ball 30-something times and don't run any RPOs to Jalen. But when he had to go down and take his team down to win, he got it. Tua took us down, and Saban, and I know this is going to be controversial, James, Saban didn't trust Tua down the stretch because we went for a field goal instead of for the score. And people can disagree with me on that, but Saban did not trust Tua in that critical moment. If Saban trusts Tua, there's no way he chooses to go to a field goal. We've seen what our field goal kickers could do.
That's the first time, Martin, I've heard that brought up, and it's actually a pretty good point when you think about it.
Yeah, why did we not go for a touchdown with Tua in the game? Because he was just he's risk averse. And we didn't score. But what if defense doesn't stop Georgia? That's the exact same situation. The last time Jalen Hurts was on the field as a quarterback, as a freshman, he did exactly what Tua did against Georgia. He took his team down to take the lead, and the defense didn't hold up on the next possession. I mean, that's the way you look at it. But as far as Tua is concerned, I do think that Jalen has struggled. We've seen him in 2 big games. He struggled. I mean, if you deny that, you're absolutely blind. Got a couple more comments, and maybe this is a conversation we continue to carry on because I'm not going to get to give you my opinion. So, hey, just hold on. We may be talking about this next week. Why not? It's going to be SEC Media Days. This is going to be the conversation. There's a lot more comments. We'll get to those coming back on the other side as we wrap up this edition of The Blitz. It's now time for us to bring in Virgil as we wrap up this edition of The Blitz. Virgil, welcome into The Blitz. What's on your mind?
Good morning, Martin.
Good morning.
Just wanted to clarify kind of what I was saying with my statement, that the reason I said what I said about Jalen and his proven ability is, in my opinion, Jalen has not done enough to lose the job. I just feel like he has led the team. He has done enough to prove himself as a leader and as a playmaker. No, he's not the best passer. We all know that. I'm not denying that. We'll never deny that. He's not the best passer. But he has proven his ability to lead the team. That was your question. Now, I also heard something earlier in the week on another show, and they were talking about the quarterback competition. And, somebody says there is no competition because the team has already chosen who they want as a quarterback. They know who's going to be the quarterback. My question is, if the team has chosen their quarterback, do they not think that Jalen is part of that team and that he would just flat out just quit if the team has already made their decision?
Well, number one is they would have had to make that decision off of 30 minutes of excellent football with a few question marks and 2-3 days of practice. It's a whole nother world when you're the man versus chasing the man. And Tua has not been healthy enough to take the job. Now, does Tua have the skill set and the ability to absolutely run away with this job? Absolutely. But because of the way the spring went and the injuries, that has not happened, in my opinion.
Agreed.